Good evening and welcome to the Bhagavatam. Today we continue for the 12th canto, chapter number 4, the 4 categories of universal annihilation. In this chapter, we have Shukdev Goswami speaking with King Parikshit, and he's going to instruct him about the destruction of the universe, how it is created. He had been talked about earlier, but today he's going to talk about the annihilation of the universe. Scientists know of this, that the universe at some point it comes to a point where it completely collapses. But this was known to Vedic rishis and sages tens of thousands of years ago. Now, Shukdev is describing it in great detail, right down to what happens out here and what happens in terms of cosmic time. So, and what happens to the ingredients and what happens to the entire and all the ingredients of the cosmos. There's a big lesson in here. You might wonder, what's there what can I learn out of this? And what's there to be learned is this, that our lives are temporary. Our lives are passing, moment, just flickering. And yet we make such a big deal out of it. We make it so important that, I have this to do and that to do and the other thing to do. But when you begin to understand the bigger picture, you realize that the things we take so seriously aren't that serious at all. The things that cause us worry, that cause us fear, that cause us anxiety, aren't really a cause of concern, because the soul is not affected by any of it. Not by the current problems you have, not by the future problems you will have. It was not affected by the past problems you had, and it will not be affected in any of the lifetimes that you have going forward, even for millions of years. The soul has always been the witnessing and experiencing whatever you're going through. And in the process, it is becoming more and more clear about who it is, who am I, and why I'm here. And these are the core questions that we have to resolve. But to resolve them, we must understand that I'm not this body, that I'm not these things that I own. I am not my desires. I am not my passions. I am not my hobbies. I am not what I think. None of this. My gender, my race, my nationality, none of it defines me. This is the point that Shukdev is getting across. So let's dive right in now. So Shukdev, as we were saying earlier, is speaking with King Parikshit, right? Shukdev is a great sage. Parikshit is a great king. The king is about to die. He was supposed to die in 7 days. And then he called for all the sages and the Bhagavatam was spoken. And now we were right at the end, the very end. And so Shukdev, the sage, is preparing the king for the last moments of his life. Shukdev said, "My dear king, I have already described to you the measurements of time, beginning from the smallest fraction measured by the movement of a single atom." An earlier part of the Bhagavatam, he had described this, right down to the movement of the atom and down to the measure of time based on the movement of the atom. Even described the size of the atom. You could say, how could these people know these things when they didn't have electron microscopes and they didn't have all the technology that we have today? The reality is this: they had technology. They had the ultimate technology, and it wasn't in labs, and it wasn't in big, in the places where, what is that called, where the accelerators and so on, where they split the atoms. No. The lab in which they discovered all these amazing things was within oneself. With their spiritual wisdom, awakened spiritual wisdom, with their enlightened spiritual insights. They were able to witness and see and experience things not only within themselves, but also throughout the universe. And so he's talking about, I have already described to you the measurement of time beginning from the smallest fraction measured by the movement of a single atom up to the total lifespan of Brahma. Now, who is this Brahma? Brahma is known to be the creator of the universe. Every universe has a creator, and that creator's name is Brahma. So there are many Brahmas because there are many universes, right? And time span is very different for Brahma. We're going to come into that right now. Then Shukdev says, I have also discussed the measurement of the different millennia of universal history. Now here about the time of Brahma's day and the process of annihilation. So at this point, let's go back a little bit. Let's understand something that we've said earlier but will be relevant now. The time we live in today is called Kali Yuga. Kali Yuga lasts 432,000 years. Okay? Before that, 5,000 years ago, so it started 5,000 years ago, and it has a long ways to go still. And we've been reading about all the different problems that are going to arise in Kali Yuga. Then Dwapar Yuga lasts 864,000 years. Before that was Treta Yuga, which will last 1,296,000 years. And before that was Satya Yuga, which lasted 1,728,000 years. In earlier episodes of the Bhagavatam, we've talked about all these different ages. We've talked about their characteristics. We've talked about, just if you go back a few episodes, you'll come across all those. So be sure to check it out. It's all there on my on a playlist that I've created called Srimad Bhagavatam, the Divine Love Podcast. And on there on my channel, you'll find it. Just go to @Rohit Juneja and you'll see it there. So it's now breaking up the time frame in our universe, right? Now we'll come across what happens in the rest of the universes. Right. So now we talked about the 4 yugas, right? 4 of those yugas together form a Mahayuga, and that lasts a total of 4.32 million years. So that's the Satya Yuga, Treta Yuga, Dwapar, and Kali Yuga. All 4 together form a Mahayuga, which lasts 4.32 million years. We're in the Kali Yuga, the last of those ages, of the 4 ages. 1,000 of these Mahayugas, right? 1,000 of them, lasting 4.32 billion years, forms what is called a kalpa. One kalpa. One kalpa, therefore, is 4.32 billion years, and that is equal to 12 hours of Brahma's day. Just 12 hours. In this world of ours, we too have a different lifespan than many other creatures. If you have a dog, some of these dogs will live for 10 years or 12 years or 15 years or at most about 20, 21 years, something like that. Other creatures are there, like certain insects. Their entire life might be our one day. So from the moment they're born to the time that they grow up and they procreate and they have babies and they go out and hunt for food and finally get old and die, one day of ours has passed. But for them, it was an entire lifetime. So like this, the duration of life for every creature is different. And similarly, the duration of life for us versus those of the higher planetary systems, or aliens if you want to call them that, or the highest of those alien beings, Brahma, who is the creator of all of this universe, is very, very different. His half a day, the daytime, 12 hours, is equal to 4.32 billion years of our lifetime. So time is completely different. For him, it's 12 hours. For us, billions of years have passed. His night is the same duration too. But the point being that this is what scientists have even understood, is that time in different planets, in different universes, in different dimensions moves very differently. And we need to understand that. The sages of the Vedic era, they knew that and they were talking about it. So Shukdev says 1,000 cycles of 4 ages constitute a single day of Brahma, known as a kalpa. In that period, 14 manus come and go. From one day of Brahma, after one day of Brahma, annihilation occurs during his night. So during the night of Brahma, everything is annihilated. This night of Brahma also lasts 4.32 billion years. It is 12 hours for him, but for us it is 4.32 billion years, during which time there is complete destruction of all the universes. All the universes are destroyed. This is called the Naimitika, or occasional annihilation, during which the original creator Narayan lies down on the bed of Shesha, Ananta Shesha, and absorbs the entire universe within himself while Brahma sleeps. So it's very hard for us to understand, but when you look at the universe today, we assume that life is just what we know, when in fact, there is so much that we don't know. If you look at what our scientists are doing, they are trying to figure out how the universe works. And it's taken them, millions of them, millions of scientists, it's taken them hundreds of years, maybe even more, to try to come to some understanding of the physics, the biology, the astronomy, and all these different sciences, to get a deeper understanding of how things work out here and how to manipulate this universe. So, what to say of that which created the universe? What is the level of complexity of that being that created the DNA from which all life comes? That DNA, which within one tiny DNA, which is not just microscopic, you couldn't probably see it under a microscope. You'd have to go into some kind of very powerful electron microscope to see that DNA. Within that are 33 billion bits of information. If scientists had their way, they would harvest that DNA to be able to store massive amounts of data and reduce all these data centers that they had right down to the level of just a few DNA, which could be contained, all the data within a data center could be contained within perhaps just one coin worth of DNA. There's that much memory there. And it's the building block of everything we know. And yet we take it for granted. But how did it come about? How does it have that kind of information within it? And so for us to understand that is like an ant trying to understand a human. Similarly, we are trying to understand the nature of God. And we think, oh, these people who write the Vedas, oh, they must be crazy. They're dreaming stuff. What are they smoking, But the reality is, these are great rishis who have in their meditation, in their trance, they have seen things that are not visible to our eyes. They have heard things that are beyond our hearing. They have understood things that are not comprehensible to us. So when he says that, then he continues talking about the lifetime of Brahma, the most elevated created being. And remember, Brahma is also created. Brahma is also being just like you and I. Another living entity, but highly evolved. So these are alien species that are not like these Hollywood characters that you come across, but rather extremely beautiful, extremely knowledgeable, extremely wise, extremely evolved. Yeah. So in the Bhagavatam, it says in the 6th canto, chapter 16, text 37, every universe is covered by 7 layers: earth, water, fire, air, sky, the total energy Mahatattva, and false ego. Each of these is 10 times greater than the previous one. So what we see is earth, and there's water. You can see even here on earth, the water is far greater than the uh, land mass itself. And then fire, if you look at the sun, it's filled with fire and it's radiating there. And then the air, and then the ether, which is space. But greater than all of them is the false ego. And that's a great realization to have. Our false ego, what we call ego, but what the Vedas refer to as ahankar, they refer to something as the real ego and something as the false ego. The false ego is that which is false, which is what we think we are, but not what we actually are. The real ego is that which we are, the soul, that which is imperishable. So that is the real self. But the false ego is that which we imagine we are. You think you're a man, you think you're a woman, you think you're young, you think you're old, you think you're this body. No, you're none of that. None of that. At the same time, you're having an experience here of something that you're not. And of course, you may ask the question, well, why am I having an experience of something that I'm not? What's the big deal of this? Now, why am I being put through all of this? Why am I being put through birth and death and old age and disease? Is it necessary? Yeah, it's necessary because we are given the option to be whatever we want to be, to think whatever we want to think, to do whatever we want to do, and face the consequences. But if we truly want to understand ourselves, if we truly want to understand this universe, if we truly want to understand God, well then, there's a science to that. And it's a science that has been tried, tested, proven over tens of thousands of years. Until today, you can come across people who practice this science and have evolved massively. And even those of us like myself who've done it a little bit and very imperfectly, even we can see the advancement that we make in terms of our spiritual growth. It's tangible, it's real, and it's perceptible. You can perceive it. So, Shukdev, the great sage, continues, there are innumerable universes besides this one, and although they are unlimitedly large, they move about like atoms in you, that is in Vishnu. Therefore, you are called Ananta, or unlimited. So, just as we have within us so many bacteria and microbes and various, very tiny beings, and with even smaller than those beings, our body is made of atomic and subatomic particles. All these universes are like atoms within the body of God. They move about like atoms in you. Therefore, you are called unlimited. So this is a quote from the Bhagavatam, 6th canto. Then Shukadev continues, upon the annihilation of the material elements, the universal egg, the Brahmanda, comprising the elemental amalgamation of creation, is confronted with destruction. As annihilation approaches, there will be no rain upon the earth for 100 years. So earlier we were having the predictions for what is going to happen in Kali Yuga as time progresses, even for us now here. In the earlier episodes, we've gone over that of the 12th canto. But now he's talking about what's going to happen on this earth at the time of annihilation. So by that time, much of the population will not exist here, and what will exist will go through a fairly difficult period. As annihilation approaches, there will be no rain upon the earth for 100 years. Drought will lead to famine, and the starving populace will literally consume one another. The inhabitants of the earth, bewildered by the force of time, will gradually be destroyed. The sun in its annihilating form will drink up with its terrible rays all the water of the ocean, of living bodies and the earth itself, but the devastating sun will not give any rain in return. I'd actually read this when I was almost 5 or 6 years old from a science book made for kids, and it talked about how the universe, the sun would become so bright at some point where everything within the earth would just be burnt, and the oceans and everything would just completely destroy, and then the universe would move towards a point of annihilation. Next, he says, the great fire of annihilation will flare up from the mouth of Shankarshan. Carried by the mighty force of the wind, this fire will burn throughout the universe, scorching the lifeless cosmic shell. Now, this might seem horrible for you and me. But once again, please understand, we are dealing with a very different understanding of life. If you start from the idea that I am this body, and therefore birth and death are very tragic things, then yes, it's terrible. But if you start from the understanding that I am an imperishable soul and nothing can destroy me, that these are all part of the experiences we have while we're here. So some people want to have wonderful, pleasurable experiences, go to a nice, lovely island, and go to some beautiful place in that hotel, and be on some great, wonderful luxury cruise or whatever else. Or, travel to exotic places and experience wonderful foods and have a fun time. Yeah, okay. But then there is also this side. This earth, this human existence comes with both sides. There are times you've been wealthy and rich and abundant, and there are times you've been poor and destitute. There are times you've lived in beautiful places, and there are times in other lifetimes you might be living in a desert or in some very impoverished condition. All of this is part of the experience. So if you think I'm here just to have the good experiences of life, no, you will have both. You will have pleasure and pain. You will have happiness and sorrow. You will have all of it. You will have wealth and poverty. And you think it's going to be just a little here and there. No, no. Depending on the karmic work that you've done, there will be consequences at every stage. The point is that the universe is designed to show us that this is not where we belong. This is not where we belong. Many of us feel this way. We feel like we don't belong here. We feel sometimes these are not our people. We feel sometimes that we're like a stranger in a strange land. And we don't know why. Because the truth is we are. As spiritual beings, we don't belong here. We belong to that kingdom of light called Vaikuntha, the spiritual world. And in that kingdom of light, there are beautiful planets. And there we have spiritual form which is no longer subject to suffering, no longer subject to birth, death, old age, disease. We do not want suffering. And yet suffering comes to us because we are in this world. But the day we understand that I don't belong here, that my longing is for something different, for something more, then we are ready to adopt the process, the science, the techniques that have been developed for tens of thousands of years by the great sages and rishis that show us how to become free from the cycle of birth and death, and how to be with that supreme being, Sri Krishna, who is the source of all beauty and joy and love. It's up to us. We have the freedom. Shukadev then continues describing that the universal sphere, the entire universe, will glow like a burning ball of cow dung. Cow dung is used sometimes to create fire. And so when you burn it, it's like hot coals. So the entire universe will glow like that burning ball of fire. A great and terrible wind of destruction will begin to blow for more than 100 years, and the sky covered with dust will turn gray. After that, groups of multicolored clouds will gather, roaring terribly with thunder, and will pour down floods of rain for 100 years. At that time, the shell of the universe will fill up with water, forming a single cosmic ocean. As the entire universe is flooded, the water will rob the earth of its unique quality of fragrance, and the element of earth, deprived of its distinguishing quality, will be dissolved. So remember, we are describing in here the dissolution of the universe. Just as creation is sometimes fascinating, dissolution sometimes sounds horrific. Creating a beautiful work of art, a beautiful building, is a wonderful thing. But when you see it being destroyed, it may seem very tragic. But you're never going to be affected by that. You as a soul will live on and will get to experience life again and again in all its wonderful colors. The element fire then seizes the taste from the element water, and deprived of its unique quality, taste merges into the fire. So now it seems a little bit confusing. What is he saying? So, you heard about how there's earth, water, fire, air, ether. So now they are collapsing into each other, right? And as they collapse into each other, it's following a reverse progression. Like first it was the earth, then it was the water, then it was the air, and the fire, air, all of that was starting to collapse into each other. And finally the ahankar, the false ego in the mode of passion, and then with that the three modes of material nature. And the total mahatattva also collapses. The entire universe begins to collapse. And along with it, the modes of nature. These modes are further overtaken by the original unmanifest form of nature called pradhan. Now, this is a very important understanding. The entire universe begins from infinite potential. That is called pradhan in Sanskrit. And now it is dissolving back into that pradhan. So it is manifest for a certain time. That certain time might be millions, even trillions of years, right? And then it collapses back into that pradhan, into that unmanifest form of nature. That unmanifest nature is not subject to 6 kinds of transformation caused by the influence of time. Rather, it has no beginning and no end. So let's go over some of its qualities. Pradhan, which is this field of unmanifest nature, is eternal, it is infallible, and it is the original basis of all material creation. It has no beginning and no end. It is unmanifest, eternal, and the infallible cause of creation. In the unmanifest stage of material nature called pradhan, there is no expression of words, no mind, no manifestation of the subtle elements beginning from the mahat, nor are there the modes of goodness, passion, and ignorance. There is no prana or life air or intelligence, nor are there senses or demigods. There is no definite arrangement of planetary systems, nor are there present the different stages of consciousness, sleep, wakefulness, and deep sleep. There is no ether, water, earth, air, fire, sun, or space. The situation is just like that of complete sleep or of voidness. Indeed, it is indescribable. Authorities in spiritual science explain, however, that since pradhan is the original substance, it is the actual basis of material creation. So remember, this is not an eternal state. There are many who talk about nirvana, merging with the voidness, right? That was Buddha's teaching, going into the nirvana, becoming completely into shunyavadi. So either merging into that shunya or that voidness or into the light. Either way, none of that is permanent. That is not a permanent solution. We will come back into this world. So even though one goes into that, because all the souls then go back into that voidness, into the body of Mahavishnu. And then from there, they're manifest again when the earth is, when the universes are created. And then the universe is again annihilated and all the souls go back into the body of Mahavishnu. And then they again come back when everything is created. So this cycle goes on. It goes on ad infinitum. This is the annihilation called prakritika. during which the energies belonging to the Supreme Person and his unmanifest material nature, disassembled by the force of time, are deprived of their potencies and merged together totally. It is the absolute truth alone who manifests in the form of intelligence. It's the absolute truth, meaning the Supreme Godhead, the Supreme Being, that absolute truth, Param Satyam, who manifests in the forms of intelligence, the senses, the objects of sense perception, and who is their ultimate basis. So what's saying here is that that Supreme Being is the basis of everything. You know, you see all around us, there is all this material stuff ranging from nature to the human beings to all the things that we create. But the raw ingredient of all these things is the energy of God, or Brahman. That energy is the raw material from which everything is created. And you say, how do you know that? I'll tell you, I'll give you evidence. You can experience it. You can go within nature. You can quiet your mind and you can experience it. If you are there with a quiet mind within any aspect of nature, you will experience a peace. You will experience a joy. You will experience a lightness of being. This will be true anywhere in the world that you go. It doesn't matter whether you're a man or a woman or a child. You will feel this because you are feeling the presence of God, which is in everything. Similarly, if you interact with any human being or animal in a state of no mind, you will experience the presence of God within them. If you're in a state of mind, then you will think, oh, this is a man, this is a woman, now this agenda, that agenda, this is a child, this is an animal. Oh, with the animal, I can be, more carefree, but with the human being, I have to be guarded. That's you're in your head. But if you can go beyond your mind, and if you can be in a state of no mind and experience any other human being, doesn't matter what race, what gender, what political or ideological belief they might have, but if you can be in a state of no mind with no labels, with no identification of this, that, of whatever it is your mind has made up, if you can be in that state and experience them, you will experience the presence of God within them. Because again, you will experience this beautiful, wonderful, loving presence, as you do even with your own pets and animals. The same thing can be experienced with any and every human being. And once you understand that this is the case with everyone, you will not see any distinction between one person or the other. You will not see people for their bodies. You will see people for the presence of the divine within them. But that takes experimenting. Like I said in the beginning of this talk, that this is the lab. And these are the experiments that we need to do. We need to rise beyond the limitations of the senses, the limitations of the mind, the limitations of our intelligence, and the limitations of our ego. Because it is only then that we'll be able to see that other realm that lies beyond these limitations. And it's there for all of us to see. And it's not difficult, except that we have to go past our own blocks. For that, one needs to hear from the Bhagavatam. One needs to hear from the Bhagavad Gita. One needs to hear about another possibility and be willing to experiment and try it out. And there is no risk. There is nothing you will lose. Simply that you will have opened your mind to experiencing another dimension. And then you can see for yourself. There is no need to believe. Then Shukadev says, whatever has a beginning and an end is insubstantial because of being an object perceived by limited senses and because of being none different from its cause. There's a lot in here. Whatever has a beginning and an end means all material things, including this body, right? Including all our life experiences. Whatever has a beginning and an end is insubstantial. So the Vedas look at that which is eternal is that which is real, and that which is temporary is that which is false. Then you say, what does it mean false? It's real. I can see it. I can hear it. I can touch it. Of course you can. And to that degree, it is real. But in terms of eternality, it will not withstand that test. In terms of 100 years or 1,000 years, it will not stand the test. Every form that you know today, from your house to through the person who you're with, will not stand the test of time. With time, all of it will crumble. All of it will be reduced to nothing. On the other hand, that which is the soul, that is eternal. That will go from one body to another, to another, to another. Whereas the body itself will collapse. So therefore, the soul is therefore referred to as eternal, and because it is eternal, it is considered real. God is eternal, therefore God is real. But the body is temporary. And because it is temporary, it is therefore referred to as asat, that which is unreal or illusory. It appears to be real for some time, absolutely right. We cannot say that it is, as some people say, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya. Mithya, that means mithya actually refers to something being false. It is not false. It is not false. The body is not false. The things of this world are not false. They seem very real. They feel very real. But that doesn't make them real in the sense of being eternal or lasting. That's the clear understanding. That which is eternal is considered that which is real. So again, think of it like this. You go to a movie. You watch a movie for 2 hours. You laugh, you cry, and then it's done. And you walk out of the movie theater and now it's all behind you. So that's what life is like. This is another movie we're experiencing. It's just a really three-dimensional, very real-seeming movie. I mean, right now we've gone from movie theaters to 3D devices that we can wear on our head, and we can feel 3D worlds around us, and we can have that illusion. Now imagine a 3D reality in which this is this body, mind, organism that we live in. This is the headset. and the reality we're experiencing is very three-dimensional and real. If you bump into something, it hurts. If you fall down the stairs, you get wounded. You get in front of a car, you might die. It's very real seeming. And yet, in terms of that which is eternal, not really. So then it goes on to explain in a slightly different way. A lamp, the eye that views the light of that lamp, and the visible form that is viewed are all basically none different from the element fire. It's all coming from that light, fire. So these forms that we see are all coming from the element fire. What they mean by fire, what they mean by air is from the energy level. Even if you think of your body is actually a furnace. It's burning at 96 degrees. If you had 96-degree temperature outside you in your house, right, Fahrenheit, 96 degrees Fahrenheit, it would be very hot. It would not be very pleasant. You might want the air conditioning on. But that's the temperature of your body. Is it 98? 98.1, right? Okay. Yeah, 98. So that's how hot your body is. And it's at that temperature all the time. So this is fire. There's a fire inside, a fiery energy. And there is that same kind of energy all around us. In the same way, the intelligence, the senses, and sense perceptions have no existence separate from the supreme reality. So, basic truth that Bhagavatam tries to get across is that the supreme reality, the absolute truth or God, is woven into everything you see around you. Everywhere, all around you, in every atom, in every particle of the creation of the world is God. And sometimes if you were to ask a fish about water, so where is water? The fish will say, I don't know what is water. He's always lived in it. You know what is water because you live outside it. Similarly, one who has learn to step out of this mind-body organism and raise their consciousness to the point where they are the witness of this, then that person knows the difference between illusion and reality. But one who is in and identified with the body, mind, organism, its sensations, its feelings, its experiences, then that person will say, no, 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 this is all there is. There is no other dimension, no other consciousness, no other possibility. And yet it is very possible to raise one's awareness and one's consciousness to a point where you can actually watch yourself. You can watch your thoughts. You can watch your emotions and not buy into any of it. You can watch the things of this world, the events of the world, from birth to death to old age to disease, and not be affected by any of it. That is the stage of equilibrium. That is the stage of having woken up. That's what it means, awakening. That you have woken up to the reality of who you are as a spiritual being. You're able to witness this entire play of life. Now, that doesn't mean you can't be identified with it. You can be in it, and you can, like there's a beautiful saying in the Bible, says, to be in the world but not of the world. To not be identified with it, but yet be in it. That is very possible. It doesn't mean that you have to be completely disconnected from feelings and from experiences. No, it's not necessary. You can very much feel and experience everything and yet know, and yet not be identified with it. Therefore, no longer, not affected by. Therefore, Krishna says in the Gita, the wise lament neither for the living nor the dead. Why? Why do they not lament for the living nor the dead? You look at the living and they're going through so many tragic situations. One should lament. It is only humanitarian and only good and right. Yes, as long as you are identified with the body. But if I see that same thing in a movie, I won't lament. I might feel a little compassion, yes. I might feel that, but this is, each person is going through the reactions to their actions. When you begin to see that in terms of an eternal time frame, and you begin to see that on this lifetime they behaved this way, and then they got this consequence, and now they're in this situation, you're able to see the entire thing. And when you begin to see even bigger that this is all part of their journey to coming back to that point of awakening where they are no longer going to suffer ever again, where they will wake up to the reality of who they are, then you see, it all makes sense now. And that is the vision of the sages. That is the vision of the people who are, like Shukadeva, who is speaking right now in this Bhagavatam. The three states of intelligence are called waking, consciousness, sleep, and deep sleep. But the variety of experience is created for the pure living entity, for the soul, by these different states, that is waking, sleeping, and deep sleep. The variety of experiences that are created during these things are nothing more than illusion. In the purport is written, pure Krishna consciousness or God consciousness exists beyond the various stages of material awareness. Just as darkness vanishes in the presence of light, so illusory material intelligence, which is experienced as normal perception, dreaming, and deep sleep, completely vanishes in the brilliant presence of pure divine consciousness. The constitutional, which is the constitutional condition of every living entity, meaning that is the nature of your soul. Your soul is already highly evolved. Your soul is already highly enlightened. It is already where you want to be if you're trying to advance spiritually. You simply need to understand that there are some layers that are blocking you from perceiving that. The layers of thought, the layers of the impressions in your subconscious, the layers of your own beliefs, and all of that is in the way. As you move those aside, you can feel and experience that which you are. Not far away. It's just right next to you. It's the closest thing to you. Then Shukadev says, just as clouds in the sky come into being and are then dispersed by the amalgamation and dissolution of their constituent elements, this material universe is created and destroyed within the absolute truth by the amalgamation, that is, coming together, and dissolution of its elemental constituent parts. He's comparing it to clouds in the sky that come into being and then are dispersed. The same way creation and destruction of the universe happens. It is stated in the Vedanta Sutra that the ingredient cause that constitutes any manifested product in this universe can be perceived as a separate reality, just as threads that make up a cloth can be perceived separately from their product. So the ingredient cause, what is the ingredient cause of this universe? That is actually that pradhan, the unmanifest, eternal, infallible energy of God, which is woven through the entire universe, just as threads weave together cloth. Beautiful example here. Anything experienced in terms of general cause and specific effect must be an illusion. So again, cause and effect, these are part of the illusion. Good and bad, right and wrong. You did this and she did that, and therefore I am upset and angry. All that is part of the illusion, because such causes and effects exist only relative to each other. Indeed, whatever has a beginning and an end is unreal. In the purport it is said, the nature of a material cause cannot be perceived without perception of the effect. So if somebody claps their hands, there's a cause. The effect is that there is a sound. But I cannot have a clapping of hands with no sound. It's not going to happen unless I do it deliberately like that. I just make it deliberately so it doesn't really hit. Then of course. But when there's a cause, there will be an effect. For example, the burning nature of fire cannot be perceived without observing the effect of fire, such as a burning object or ashes. Similarly, the saturating quality of water cannot be understood without observing the effect, a saturated cloth or paper. The organizational power of a man cannot be understood without observing the effect of his dynamic work. Namely, perhaps he's created some kind of institution, a business, whatever. In this way, not only do effects depend upon their causes, but the perception of the cause also depends upon the observation of the effect. So they're deeply interrelated. Similarly, when you look at this world, this is the effect. What is the cause behind this effect? Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha. He is Sarva Karana Karanam. He is the cause of all causes. That is God. Thus both are defined relatively and have a beginning and an end. The conclusion is that all such material causes and effects are essentially temporary and relative and consequently illusory. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, although the cause of all causes, has no beginning or end. Therefore, he is neither material nor illusory. Krishna's opulences and potencies are absolute reality beyond the interdependence of material cause and effect. This is such an important part here. That which is the ultimate cause is beyond the cause and effects of this world. He is neither material nor illusory. His opulences and potencies are beyond the interdependence of material cause and effect. He's independent of the material cause and effect. We exist because our parents had sex and therefore they gave birth to us and now we exist. But he is not dependent on such birth. He is not dependent on his parents doing something and therefore coming into, no. People ask, oh, if God created us, then who created God? This is a very common question you'll get. And the reality is answered by Krishna right in the beginning of the Gita. He says, never was there a time when I did not exist, nor you, and nor all these kings, and never in the future will any of us cease to be. So God is eternal, the soul is eternal. All of us, we are eternal beings. And yet we're in this delusion here of cause and effect. But the soul and God are beyond this interdependence of cause and effect. Unless, of course, you're in a physical body, then it's different. Shukdev continues, although perceived, the transformation of even a single atom of material nature has no ultimate definition without reference to the Supreme Soul. To be accepted as factually existing, something must possess the same quality as pure spirit, eternal, unchanging existence. So to really exist, anything that actually exists must have the same quality as pure spirit, as God, as the soul, that it is eternal, unchanging existence. Satchit Ananda. That means all of this material world is actually just that. It is actually an effect emanating from God. Therefore, it merges back into Him, then comes and creates again, merges back into Him, comes and gets created all over again. Because it is coming from that original source, which is eternal. And therefore, even the world that you see around you is ultimately, in its primal form, eternal. Although the shapes and forms will dissolve, but the energy that was within it, that energy will always be there. Material nature is therefore considered eternal. Soul is eternal. God is eternal. Material nature is ultimately eternal. Not the forms. The forms are not eternal. Just like waves in an ocean are not eternal, but are not the ocean. The ocean is the whole expanse. The waves are just a little something on the surface that come up. But the ocean, the whole other thing. Shukadev continues, there is no material duality in the absolute truth. So this duality that we experience, Ichcha and Dvesha, I like this, I don't like this, desire and hate, positive and negative. This exists because of the mind, and it is the nature of this world. This is called duality. Ichcha, Dvesha, Samudvena, Dvanda Mohena Bharata. Dvanda means duality, and Moha means illusion. So what causes the illusion of this world, what causes the suffering and happiness of this world is dvanda, duality. As long as you say, I like this and I don't like that, then you are in that duality. And as long as you are in that duality, there will be happiness and there will be suffering. When things go your way, you will be happy. When things don't go your way, you will be unhappy. That is the very nature of suffering. You may say, oh no, but there are some people who are actually suffering. Oh, they're in a place where there's poverty and they don't have food and they don't have clothing and they don't. Well, I know a lot of sadhus, really wise, evolved, highly advanced beings who live without any clothes, who live without any food, who have learned the art of how to exist without anything. So it's not that, and they are blissful and they're completely unaffected by the world. There is an art to it. But the one who is experiencing the suffering is not aware of that art. They are caught in the dualities of this world. And that's okay. That's the experience they're having. No one can take that away from them, and no one can rush them into becoming that great sage who is unaffected by anything of the world. You can't rush anyone. Everyone has to go through this, and when the time is right and they are ready, they will seek it. They will seek how can I become free? So there is no material duality in the absolute truth. There cannot be any material duality in God, in the absolute truth. The duality perceived by an ignorant person is like the difference between the sky contained in an empty pot and the sky outside the pot. Sky meaning the air or ether or space. So when you think of the empty pot, there is space within it, there is space outside it. You call it inside and outside, but it's actually just space that is inside and outside. It has nothing to do with the pot. There's no difference between the space or air that is within the pot and the air that is outside the pot. They're the same air. Or there's no difference between the reflection of the sun in water and the sun itself in the sky. Or there's no difference between the vital air within one's body and that within another body. According to their different purposes, people utilize gold in various ways, and gold is therefore perceived in various forms. In the same way, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna, who is inaccessible to the material senses, is described in various terms, both ordinary and Vedic, by different types of people. By the way, if you have any question, please feel free to ask them. I do receive all the questions here, and I'm happy to answer your questions at the end of this reading. Although a cloud is a product of the sun and is also made visible by the sun, it nevertheless creates darkness for the viewing eye, which is another partial expansion of the sun. Similarly, material false ego, a particular product of the absolute truth, made visible by the absolute truth. Beginning to see something, that there's a common thread that's running through everything. The false ego, which is when you think, I am this body, I am male, I am female, that's the false ego, is a product of the absolute truth, ahankar, and is made visible by the absolute truth, or God. And that same experience of the false ego obstructs the individual soul. It conceals the soul from experiencing its true nature, and then obstructs it from realizing God, or the absolute truth, who is the origin of the false ego, and who is the origin of this body, and who is the origin of everything. When the cloud originally produced from the sun is torn apart, the eye can see the actual form of the sun. So when the clouds separate, you can actually see the sun. Similarly, when the soul destroys his material coverings of false ego, by inquiring into the transcendental science, he regains his original spiritual awareness. It's a great example. The clouds come, they block the sun. As soon as the clouds part, the sun is right there. The sun never went anywhere. It was just hidden by the clouds. In the purport is explained, just as the sun can burn away the clouds that prevent one from seeing it, the Supreme Lord, and He alone, can remove the false ego that prevents one from seeing Him. There are some creatures, however, like owls, who are averse to seeing the sun. In the same way, there are those who are not interested in spiritual knowledge and will never receive the privilege of seeing God. It's their choice, but they don't want that. So therefore, they're given that facility. Krishna says in the Gita that I am seated in everyone's heart. He's seated in everyone's heart. And from me alone comes knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. Meaning, if you want to remember me, I will give you the ability to understand me and know me. If you want to forget me, I'll give you that. Knowledge, remembrance, and forgetfulness. You can have it all. Either way you want. You choose. Shukadev continues, my dear Parikshit, when the illusory false ego that binds the soul has been cut off with the sword of discriminating knowledge, and one has developed realization of the Supreme Soul, Krishna, Achyuta, this is called Atyantika, or ultimate annihilation of material existence. Experts in the subtle workings of nature have declared that there are continuous processes of creation and annihilation that all created beings, beginning with Brahma, constantly undergo. All material entities undergo transformation and are constantly and swiftly eroded by the mighty currents of time. The various stages of existence that material things exhibit are the perpetual causes of their generation and annihilation. These stages of existence, created by beginningless and endless time, the impersonal representative of the Supreme Lord, are not visible, just as the infinitesimal momentary changes of position of the planets in the sky cannot be directly seen. So it's really going into the same point through different angles. Purport. Although everyone knows that the sun is constantly moving in the sky, one cannot normally see the sun moving. Similarly, no one can directly perceive his hair or nails growing, although with the passing of time we perceive the fact of growth. Meaning, as it's happening, you're not seeing it, but it is happening all the time. The sun is, position of the sun is changing all the time. The hair, your nails, everything is growing all the time. Just don't see it. So then he says, time, the potency of the Supreme Lord is very subtle and powerful, and is an insurmountable barrier to those who are trying to exploit the material creation. Then Shukadev says, in this way, the progress of time is described in terms of the 4 kinds of annihilation. What are the 4 kinds of annihilation? Continuous, occasional, elemental, and final. Continuous is happening all the time. Right? We were just talking about that. Things are being created, things are growing, and things are being annihilated as well. You look at plants, you look at trees. There's a continuous process. Our own bodies. There's a continuous process of annihilation happening in this body as it's gradually aging and gradually moving towards death. Then there's the occasional annihilation. That was what he was describing when Brahma is, when the entire day of Brahma ends and the entire universe dissolves. Then again is created from the Pradhan. So that is the occasional annihilation. And this elemental, all the elements of existence are annihilated. Finally, and then there's final annihilation. So the different stages. And just as we need to understand creation and annihilation, we need to understand birth and death. We need to understand beginnings and endings. Both are as important. I have related to you these narrations of the pastimes of Narayan, the creator of this world and the ultimate reservoir of all existence, presenting them to you only in brief summary. Even Brahma himself would be incapable of describing them entirely. For a person who is suffering in the fire of countless miseries and who desires to cross the insurmountable ocean of material existence, samsara sindhum ati dushtaram, there is no suitable boat except that of cultivating devotion to the transcendental taste for the narrations of Bhagavat Purushottama, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, its pastimes, which are known as Leela Katha Rasa Nishevanam. So what he's saying here is something he said a few times in the Bhagavatam. He says, if you really want to go beyond suffering, if you really want to put an end to the countless miseries of this world, there is no more suitable boat. He says, like, this is an ocean of suffering. There is no more suitable boat except the cultivation of devotion, loving devotion to the transcendental taste for the narrations of the Supreme Lord. It's not like you have to do some grand thing. You simply need to be able to hear these words of the great sages and begin to relish them. Right now, your mind will feel uncomfortable. Oh, this is beyond me. This is difficult. This is hard. Yes, your mind will struggle. My mind struggles too, but I have to bring my mind to understand. And as I begin to unpack the wisdom here, as I take the time not to go for that instant gratification that will be offered by scrolling through Instagram or TikTok or some other YouTube videos, as I take the time to unpack the wisdom here, my awareness, my consciousness, my soul lights up. It's, oh, wow, I never thought of that before. I never understood that before. And a new level of understanding and a new level of realization comes about. And it is that excitement that keeps one coming back, because you're gradually opening up newer and newer levels of taste or experience. And with that, you begin to relish. Therefore, you could read this Bhagavatam for the rest of your life, again and again and again. And each time you would get new meanings and new understandings and new interpretation as you yourself evolve, because it will change your consciousness. And as your consciousness changes, you will relish it even further. And those who have advanced highly find every word fascinating, find every nuance within it absolutely delicious. So that's what he's saying. One needs to develop ruchi. Ruchi for what? Leela Katha Rasa. Beautiful words here. For the Leela, the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Actually, all this philosophy and all this detail about the universe and about annihilation and about creation and blah, blah, all of that is just to bring us to the point where we can begin to relish. We can have rasa. About what? Leela Katha, the pastimes of the Supreme Lord. Because only when the heart is purified, only when the mind has been quietened, can one actually begin to relish and savor and enjoy the pastimes of Sri Krishna, which is what you find all through the 10th canto, and of his devotees and their teachings and their wonderful thoughts. Then Shukdev says, long ago, this essential anthology of all the Puranas, that's what the Bhagavatam is, an anthology of all the Puranas. He's taken the essence, Nigama Kalpataror Galitam Phalam. He says, this is the ripened fruit of all the Vedic wisdom, this Bhagavatam. Long ago, this essential anthology of all the Puranas was spoken by the infallible Nara-Narayan Rishi to Narad, who then repeated it to Krishna Dvaipayan Veda Vyas, to Vyasdev. My dear Maharaj Parikshit, that great personality, Vyasdev, taught me this same scripture, Srimad Bhagavatam, which is equal in stature to the 4 Vedas. The same, and now he foretells what will come ahead. The same Suta Goswami who is sitting before us will speak this Bhagavatam to the sages assembled in the great sacrifice at Naimisharanya. This he will do when questioned by the members of the assembly headed by Shaunak. He was actually looking into the future and speaking about how Suta Goswami, who was seated there in the assembly listening to Shukdev, would one day repeat this entire thing to the sages at Naimisharanya. So that is the Srimad Bhagavatam, 12th canto, chapter number 4. We have just a few more to go, about 9 more episodes, at which point we'll come to the end of the Bhagavatam. So feel free to ask me your questions. Feel free to discuss. At no point do we encourage anyone to believe. No point do we encourage anyone to accept. But simply to think and question and inquire. That is essential. That is helpful. That will help you move further on this path. So if you have any questions, do write them down. I'm here for a few moments more. Otherwise, you can always put your questions in the comments. I'd be glad to answer over there. I'm here every Tuesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time, which would be 5 p.m. Pacific, and it would be Wednesday morning in India. All right, I look forward to hearing from you, answering your questions, engaging in dialogue over this, and I'll see you next week. Hare Krishna.